Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating piece of source material. We're looking at a sales letter that takes a hard look at a massive assumption in our modern consumer lives. Basically, it questions the real reason we're throwing away so much of our electronics. We're going to impartially break down the claims, run through the math, and look at the ultimate pitch of a digital program called the Easy Battery Fix. So let's dive right into this.
Right out of the gate, the text hits us with a pretty provocative question. What if most of your quote-unquote dead electronics aren't actually broken? It's a great hook, right? The source asks us to picture that mountain of discarded devices we all know about. The laptops, the old phones, power drills, all of it just marked as junk. But then it proposes this wild twist. What if most of those devices could actually be saved in a matter of minutes? It sets up this mystery immediately, basically asking us to rethink the endless cycle of buying and replacing that honestly we've all just kind of accepted as normal.
So, the author behind all these claims is a guy named Daniel Hayes. He introduces himself in the text as an electronics engineer who spent 11 years working at one of the biggest electronic recycling facilities in the U.S. According to the letter, he spent over a decade right there on the front lines, just watching truckloads of these supposedly dead devices roll in. And through that experience, he claims to have uncovered a hidden truth that manufacturers really don't want you to know.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the real culprit, investigating the source of electronic failure.
The source illustrates a major shift that the author witnessed when looking at the common signs of battery degradation and electronic failure. In the early days, he saw things that were truly broken, fried circuit boards, totally shattered screens. But eventually, the core sign of failure shifted. It became devices that booted up perfectly, but just couldn't hold a charge anymore, a single dead battery. He literally recounts this ordinary Tuesday, testing a pallet of discarded laptops. They powered on, the screens lit up perfectly, the processors hummed. The only problem? The batteries were completely dead. The machines themselves were in perfect working order, but they were headed for the shredder simply because of their power packs.
So, that brings us to the absolutely crucial question. Why is everything thrown away when the devices themselves still work? The source material grounds this massive, global e-waste issue in a super personal anecdote. The author describes watching his little girl burst into tears because her favorite toy just stopped working. And the culprit? Again, just a tiny, dead battery. The text claims this was his absolute breaking point. It shifted his whole focus from just managing industrial waste to realizing that everyday families are losing money and memories simply because batteries are, allegedly, designed to fail way too soon.
Moving on to Section 2, the true cost of replacements. We're breaking down the financial drain here.
So the author breaks down the math to calculate the recurring retail expenses that beginners face literally every day. Let's look at this. A car battery, he says, lasts around 2 years and costs about $150 to replace. If you've got 2 cars, well, that's $300 every couple of years. He claims laptop batteries die every 3 years, which is another $120. Then you start adding in all those smaller devices, phones, tablets, vacuums, at $40 to $60 a pop when they fail. And if you happen to have modern essentials like an e-bike or an electric scooter, those replacements can easily run you hundreds of dollars.
And this brings us to a truly staggering statistic: $8,000. According to this sales letter, statistics show an average family can easily waste $8,000 over a 10-year period on absolutely nothing but batteries. And the author argues this doesn't even factor in the time you waste driving to hardware stores or waiting in lines. He presents this as just a massive, continuous drain on your wallet, resources that he claims you could keep in your pocket if you knew how to calculate your total money saved and actually revive those power packs instead of just constantly replacing them.
Which leads us to Section 3, the proposed solution. Let's explore this Easy Battery Fix program.
The guide casts a remarkably wide net here. The sales letter claims the program can revive almost any type of battery you're going to encounter. We're talking heavy-duty lead-acid batteries for cars and trucks, solar, marine, and golf cart batteries, all the way down to your cell phones and everyday household AA, AAA, C, and D batteries. Now, noticeably absent here are any upfront critical safety warnings about handling such vastly different and potentially very dangerous battery chemistries. The author simply claims that he and 2 engineering colleagues spent countless nights testing and refining these methods until they supposedly proved successful across the board.
The core promise here is simplicity. No special tools, no complicated jargon, just household items. However, because this is a sales pitch, the actual demonstrations of these basic reconditioning techniques and that specific list of household items, well, they're kept completely hidden behind a paywall. The text emphasizes that it's a safe, frustration-free process designed specifically for ordinary beginners. But it completely omits any mention of vital safety protocols for avoiding things like short circuits or toxic acid leaks during the process. It also completely leaves out simple maintenance tips that might extend the life of your new batteries because the entire focus is on selling this revival method itself.
All right, Section 4, Claims and Customer Testimonials. Let's take a look at the anecdotal evidence.
A direct quote from the text really highlights the pitch. Max from California claims to have saved over $1,200 by reconditioning the batteries in his car and his home backup system. Other testimonials cite similar big financial wins. There's Karen from Florida, who claims she saved $600 on a home backup power unit, or James from Ohio, whose laptop went from a 15-minute charge to lasting 3 solid hours. The text uses these stories to really hammer home the idea that the initial cost of buying the guide pays for itself many, many times over.
But what's really fascinating to me is how the pitch moves way beyond just dollars and cents. The source leans heavily into emotional victories. For example, one testimonial from an Emily in New York talks about repairing a tablet's battery for the sole purpose of recovering priceless family photos she thought were just gone forever. The text constantly highlights the peace of mind of having a reliable backup during power outages, and the pride of showing your family that you can actually fix things instead of just throwing them out. Ultimately, it frames this whole process as a way to gain independence and take control back from the big corporations.
Finally, Section 5, the offer and the guarantee. What is the actual transaction here? The author states that when he was pricing the guide, his colleagues suggested $179 as a fair price, given the potential long-term savings. But he claims he insisted on keeping it affordable at $98, and then immediately presents a limited-time-only discount, bringing the final offer down to $49. The text relies pretty heavily on urgency here, warning the reader that there's a hard limit of just 10,000 copies and that the page might not even be here tomorrow, all to encourage you to act right now. To lower the barrier to entry, the sales letter outlines a few purchase protections. The author promises a 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee, no questions asked. The text claims there are absolutely no hidden future fees and that buyers get lifetime access to the digital guides, along with personal, unlimited customer support. It also notes the transactions are secured via ClickBank. Now, as a matter of impartial analysis, it's definitely worth noting that the fine print at the very, very bottom of the source document states the product is strictly for informational purposes, has not been technically assessed, and, actually get this, the author uses a pen name to remain completely anonymous.
And that brings us to the end of our breakdown today. I want to leave you with this final thought directly derived from the source. Next time your device dies, will you immediately go out and buy a replacement, or will you pause for a second and question the battery? Look, whether you buy into the easy battery fix claims or not, the source certainly succeeds in making us rethink our daily consumption habits and those mountains of electronic waste we're all generating. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope it sparked some curiosity about the devices that are literally powering your everyday life.